I was Govinda Singh, 1984, Gov Love 84 Aria, for hosting this T Limited, and I just wanted to do a vlog regarding Rishi Sunak, who's now become the Prime Minister of Great Britain. Firstly, I don't give a shit about the Tories. I fucking hate the Tories. The Tories is a name that was given to the Conservative Party by the Irish, which means plunderer. They plundered Ireland in the famine in Ireland. They plundered Scotland during Queen Victoria's reign. They say it was a failed harvest, a failed famine, failed harvest which resulted in the famine. It's not the case. When Queen Victoria sat her arse on the throne, they increased the tax on the Irish and the Scottish and made them pay a royal tribute to Queen Victoria, which resulted in a famine. So they're known as plunderers, and they didn't just do that in Ireland and Scotland, they did that in Africa and India as well during the colonial times. So let's just say I hate the Tories. But in regards to the Rishi Sunak and the Liz Truss leadership contest for the Conservative Party not too long ago, I didn't look too much into it because I just didn't care who leads the Tory party. I don't give a shit. But when I looked at the two candidates, I thought Rishi Sunak's clearly the more competent. He's more financially experienced in finance, and he's more clever. He's very clever in regards to mathematics and numbers. And the way Liz Truss just came across, she didn't seem like a leader of a political party, someone to lead the country. So I just, from the instant get set go, Rishi Sunak's the better out of the two candidates. So they had a contest, and Liz Truss won by 62% and Rishi Sunak 38%. And you would think, wait, hang on a minute. So was it to do a race? Of course. That it doesn't just mean 20%, let's just say 60% Liz Truss, 40% Rishi Sunak in their leadership contest. It doesn't mean that, only 20% of the Conservative Party are racist. It means the 60%, not just by the margin she won by, the 40% and the 40% that's equal to Rishi Sunak, and the 20% that took the leadership over Rishi Sunak, a full 60%, would rather choose a white lady who's not competent or suitable to lead the country over a Paki idol worshipper, over a Paki Prime Minister. And as simple as that. You look at the credentials and the skills and abilities on paper, so Rishi Sunak's the man. But rather than have a Paki Prime Minister, it wasn't, the 40% that voted, let's say 40% Rishi Sunak, 40% Liz Truss. It wasn't, those 40% for each of them are both multicultural and multi-faith societies that voted 40% each of them, and she only won by a 20% racist margin. That means all the votes she got, the 60%, did not want to see someone who's more suitable, more skilled, and more financially experienced to lead the country because of his skin color. And when you look at how Priti Patel and Rishi Sunak got their positions, it's the token coloured people in the Conservative Party at those high-ranking positions. Because India is a mega superpower. It's right now, it's Asia's era, it's China's era, and it's Asia's era. They're going to be very dominant for a long time to come. So when they want to secure trade deals and security deals with Asia, they want a panel, what's it, PA, is it PR, where they are showing to Asia, look, we've got black people in the Tory cabinet, we've got Indian people, so, we can, good relations, we're moving from the past. But they put them there to make them look like they're a decent party. But the contest between Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak clearly proved, if you put on a Tory contest a dim white woman who's not more clever or has more finance experience or more skilled than an Indian, whether male or female, opponent, the Tory and the history of the racist Tory party from the colonial times to now would rather put a dim white woman over Paki. So that's not something to be proud of, and because she made a mess of it and it all fell apart, and they were going to do a contest between Boris Johnson and Rishi Sunak. Now it's like they're looking at Rishi, well, I guess it's going to have to be him then, because there's no one else that's got the experience in numbers and mathematics and money and finances he does. Whereas they could have just all got behind him from the get-set-go during the Liz Truss contest during the election for who's the leader of the Conservative Party. They should have all just got behind him from the get-set-go. But the fact that 60% didn't want a Paki Prime Minister, but now they have to make do because there's no one else who can fit the bill. So that's not something I'm going to be, I'm a Keir Hardie old Labour Party supporter, a liberal progressive socialist. It's not going to be like, hats off, you know, he's done us proud as a Hindu Punjabi and he's the first Prime Minister, a man of colour, to be the Prime Minister. That's not something to be proud of. That's something to punch him in the fucking face for. That's something you'd make think they'd leave the Tory party and stop their coonish ways and stop kissing up to Massa and speak out against the atrocities and the racist, institutionalised, racist mentality of white supremacy in Britain. So yeah, I just had to get off my chest. I don't think it's something to be proud of. You know, I can't speak Punjabi language, I can't speak the Hindi language. But when I was little, I'm going to talk about Indian freedom fighters. From Shaheed Udham Singh Ram Allah Singh Azad, Shaheed Bhagat Singh Sukhdev Rajguru, Shaheed Subhash Chandra Bose Netaji, Shaheed General Mohan Singh of the Indian National Army Azad Hind Fauj. Now, I can't speak the language, but when you are little and you hear the stories of what Shaheed Udham Singh did to the Kanto Daya, or how Bhagat Singh died, it rises the spark of revolution in young martyrs. Because when I heard those stories as a 7, 8, 9-year-old, I said to myself, that's how I'm going to die. I'm going to die for my people, just like that. Now there's people in those young crowds that hear the stories of the revolutionaries and the freedom fighters when they're kids, and it's in one ear, out the other. They might get a bit amped up and hyped up and a bit revolutionized at the beginning, but eventually it fades away, it dies down, and they completely forget about it. But the spark it ignites in those who will grow up to be the future martyrs is something that's always been in me. That my first ever rap song when I wrote and recorded at 17 years old was invading, murdering, creating colonies, pregnant women made to walk on their hands and knees, talking regarding the Chelmsford calling order in Amritsar during the colonial time, during the British Raj. And I'll dedicate the song to Sukhdev Bhagat Singh, the man who inspired me to be who I be. And I'm not a Marxist, I'm not anti-Marxist, I just don't agree with Marxism. You know, to have an Indian Prime Minister would be great in Britain to show that we have overcome our past difficulties and our past conflicts, but not someone who kisses up to them and makes excuses for white supremacist racism, Tory plundering and exploitation. Someone who says, this is what those wanker racist cunts did back then. This is our Indian freedom fighters who went to war to put a stop to their bullshit. And then, whereas they've got the privatised Rothschild World Bank, we want that Rothschild Bank renamed the publicly owned Bank of the Commonwealth Nations, and all the nations whose money and labour went into accumulating the revenue that they banked with the Rothschilds during the colonial times, whether it's from extorting India, Africa, Aboriginal Australia or First Nations Canada. When we rename the Rothschild Bank to the publicly owned Bank of the Commonwealth Nations, and it's no longer a privatised bank in the Rothschild family, and all the nations who accumulated the wealth that they banked in that bank is now belonging to the publicly owned Bank of the Commonwealth Nations, and all the nations whose money went into that bank have a vote in the chairboard of the publicly owned Bank of the Commonwealth Nations, then we can say we can move on from the past, because now we've got recognition of having share in the world's wealth, because it was our wealth that there was the ideas of the British during those colonial times that were very powerful and put them in a powerful position. But it was the investment and the money from India and Africa that took their ideas forward and made more because of the money from our nation. So when we have recognition in the publicly owned Bank of the Commonwealth Nation, and we have a vote in the chairboard, now we can move on, now we can get back to work, now we can do our regular day-to-day jobs. But until then, fuck off. No, I'm not going to kiss their ass. I'm going to speak out against them every single day of my fucking life. That's how you move on from a past conflict and have national reconciliation, because exposed the white supremacists for the pricks they are. You've distanced yourself from those arseholes, but now you want to build a bridge with the Europeans. Now how do we build a bridge with English? Because there's lovely left-wing, right honourable gentlemen like Dennis Skinner of the British Labour Party, the late Tony Benn, Jeremy Corbyn, and, you know, we want to build a bridge with the lefties, those who applaud us and encourage us to speak out against Tory foreign policy from the 18th century, because this is the type of English I would like to build a bridge with. In the 18th century, it was called the anonymous newspaper, Anon. When they'd print publications speaking out against Victorians, they would be exiled to Australia. Yeah, there were criminals that were sent to Australia, but they're also political prisoners. So there's English people who encourage us to speak out against that Tory colonial Zionist mentality, and encourage us to speak out against them every step of the way. Now, when we speak out against the racism, then we get acknowledgement in the finances that went into investing into the Industrial Revolution. Now we can move on. Now we can be friends. And now we can build a bridge. But all these Home Secretaries like Priti Patel and Rishi Sunak, they completely disregarded everything the Indian freedom fighters sacrificed their lives to free us from, and completely undoing the work and sacrifices they've made just to kiss a Zionist capitalist white supremacist arse in the Tory party. So I just had to get that off my chest. So that's Govlove 84, Arya Govinda Singh 1984. What do you do?